Alright, so last time we talked about covalent compounds and naming and writing formulas for those. Now we're going to talk about acids. Acids are a special type of covalent compound, and they will always begin with hydrogen. It's not that they have hydrogen in it, it's that they begin with hydrogen in it. Okay, so acids are compounds that will form hydrogen ions in water. The formulas usually begin with hydrogen. So hydrochloric acid is an example, nitric acid is an example. So now that you know what an acid is, we're going to talk about how to name them because they have their own special naming rules. Oh, another example is sulfuric acid. Okay, so normally your ionic compounds are going to end in IDE, ate, or ite. For acids, you're going to change those endings. So if it ends in IDE, you're going to change the ending to ic acid. And then you're also going to give it a prefix of hydro. If it ends in ate, you're going to make it end with ic acid, but no hydro prefix. If it ends in ite, you're going to change that ending to us acid. Okay, this, I want you to make sure you copy this down into your notes. I think I left you a space so you can copy it down. So the acids will start with an H, and that's how you know that you're going to follow the acid rules. So if you see two nonmetals together or multiple nonmetals together, but it starts with hydrogen, you follow these rules. Okay, so then you look to see how many elements are in it. So if there are two elements, okay, so if there's two or more elements. So if it's two elements, you're going to have a prefix of hydro. Your ending will change to ic acid. If you have three elements, no hydro prefix, okay, then you're going to change the ending. If it ends in ate, it's ic. If it ends in ite, it's ous. Okay, so let's go ahead and just name some examples or name some acids. We've got HBr. So the first question we're going to ask ourselves is how many elements does it have? It has two. So we're going to follow this rule. So it's going to have the prefix of hydro, and then we're going to change the ending to ic acid. So this is called hydrobromic acid. Okay, so the next one, we've got H2CO3. Again, these are all nonmetals, hydrogen, carbon, and oxygen. So we ask ourselves how many elements are in it. It's more than two. So there is no hydro prefix. So then the next question would be, does it end in ate or ite? Well, CO3 is carbonate. So it ends in ate, so you're going to end it in ic acid. Carbonic acid. Alright, the next one, you've got more than two elements, so no prefix. Then you ask yourself, what does this end in? So you're treating this just like an ionic compound, even though it is technically covalent, you're treating this like an ionic compound. So SO3 is going to be sulfite, so it ends in ite, so then I'm going to change the ending to OUS. So instead of sulfite, it'll be sulfurous acid. Okay, alright, so let's go backwards. We're going to make the formulas with this. And again, we're going to treat this like an ionic compound even though it is covalently bonded. And so hydrofluoric acid, it has a prefix. So since it has a prefix of hydro, that means that it will have two elements. So one of those elements has to be hydrogen. The other element has to be fluorine because of that last part. fluoric. So it's two elements because of the hydro prefix. One of the elements has to be hydrogen. We're treating this just like an ionic compound, so we're going to look at the charges. Hydrogen is +1, fluorine is -1. Okay, I know it has to be hydrogen because it's an acid. If it's an acid, it has to have hydrogen first. The fluoric tells me there's fluorine, and I'm going to treat this like an ionic compound and use the charges. So it should be just HF. Okay, the next one is sulfuric acid. There is no hydro prefix, so since there is no hydro prefix, it is 3 elements. It ends in ic, so it's either going to be sulfate or sulfite because it has more than one element. It cannot be sulfur. If it had a prefix of hydro, if it was hydrosulfuric acid, then it would be sulfur. But this has no hydro prefix, which means it has to have a polyatomic. So the polyatomic is either going to be sulfate or sulfite. Since it ends in ic, it's going to be sulfate. Hydrogen has a +1 charge, sulfate is -2. So when we put the formula together, we're going to switch the charges. It should be H2SO4. All right, nitrous acid. Because there is, again, there's no hydro prefix, it has to be a polyatomic. It has to be at least 3 elements. Okay, it ends in us, so it's either going to be nitrate or nitrite. Since it ends in OUS, it's nitrite. Okay, so when we put the compound together, +1, -1, they cancel. It's HNO2. So if it were hydronitric acid, that would be just nitrogen. But since there's no prefix, it has to be a polyatomic here.